All right, you are locked into MMA Canada and very excited to be talking to an individual who has quite the fight coming up against a former champion within the Bellator MMA fold, and it all goes down in San Diego, Pachanga Arena on Saturday, September the 7th. We have Douglas Lima getting in there against Aaron Jeffery. Great getting to have Aaron on the MMA Canada platform. How's your day been going so far, man?
Good man. How about you?
Yeah, no, doing solid. Got back from jujitsu. I'm very early on in my journey and whatnot, but yeah, I
Nice.
know it's been fun getting a little sweat on and stuff like that.
Sick. How long you been doing that for?
I did it like in a hobbyist kind of way, like way back in high school. So I feel like for me in my mind, I'm essentially starting from scratch, but like I'm like a two-stripe white belt now, but I feel like I do all right, all things considered.
That's awesome, man. Good for you.
Yeah, no, it's a cool thing to get into for sure, but my acumen is far more rudimentary than yours. We're here to talk about what you're getting up to. And I mean, your opponent here, I mean, high pedigree as well, absolutely. Like when did this, I guess, bout initially get on your radar? Because I mean, Lima returning to the Bellator cage for the first time in over a year, and I mean, switching divisions as well too, because he was the champion at welterweight. So I guess when did you get wind of all of this?
Um, it was probably like 3 months out from the fight, I think, when they gave me a name and a date. I didn't have a contract for a while, but usually when they give you a name and a date, it's a pretty done deal kind of. But yeah, I think it was probably like 10 or 12 weeks out when they told me.
And I kind of mentioned he came from a different division. Like, I guess in that sense, was he ever on your radar? Like, I'm sure he'd be on your radar in the sense of being aware, who he is. And like I said, the pedigree, but I guess did it ever register that he might have been an opponent, or has there always been kind of like I guess, a peripheral awareness in a certain sense, I guess?
No, honestly, never really considered it. He has had a few fights at middleweight, or at least a couple that I know of. I think when he was still the champ, he fought Musasi to go for like double champ status. I think the belt was vacant at the time. And his last fight actually was his first one back at middleweight. He fought Castelo Vanstinas. And I think after that fight, he said like I'm gonna stay here for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, he has been at it for a little bit, so it's probably like an easier kind of cut for him on his body. Probably pays dividends in that regard, like having more energy for the fights and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think he missed weight a couple times at 172 in some of his last fights there. So yeah, I think he's kind of like an in-betweener, right? Like he's super big for 170, he's not huge for 185, but yeah, he has bounced back and forth a little bit.
And I mean, not that this has been super recent for you, but I mean, I guess even anecdotally, you could probably attest to it just with like your first few fights being at welterweight. And I mean, the bulk of the career obviously has been at middleweight, but I guess you have a certain degree of experience between those divisions also.
Yeah, man, I think so many guys are like killing themselves to cut weight and they think it's going to be such a big advantage to cut the extra like 10 pounds or whatever, but it just doesn't really seem to play out that way usually.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. And yeah, just so much going on with Bellator and just, PFL nowadays. It's been really cool to follow. But something that I always enjoy seeing in just, I guess, martial arts culture in general is like when you'll see opponents kind of become training partners. That seemed to be the case with Brendan Allen recently, based on a Kill Cliff workout video I was seeing. Like, I guess, I mean, Kill Cliff always has so many amazing individuals working there. Like, I saw you working with Aung La N Sang as well. So, yeah, just it seems like such a great space to really hone those skills and all.
It's a sick gym, man. It's crazy. Like there's so many high level guys there. There's like 70 pro fighters, I think. So like on any given day, like the room is just packed full of like elite talent. So yeah, it's sick. And I know I've heard of some gyms that are not like a super friendly atmosphere and there's lots of high level guys and people are trying to take your head off and stuff, but it's not like that there. It's like a very solid like team environment. Everyone's trying to help each other out. So yeah, it's pretty sick.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I guess I'm kind of wondering because I feel like you usually split your time between Niagara Top Team and Kill Cliff. Like, how have the preparations been kind of divided, or have you been more at a primary space ahead of this one?
No, it was pretty much like half and half again. I was down there in May, I believe. I was there for a month, and I think I I think that was when I got a name for my fight, is when I was down there in May. But I was there for a month, and then I came back home for 5 or 6 weeks, and then I was just down there again for 4 weeks. And I'm just doing like the last 10 days here at home before I fly out.
I feel like there's such great people at Niagara top team across multiple weight categories, whether it's like Mike Malott or Zach Powell. I mean, there's tons of names I could drop, but I mean, even on the level of like game planning and great minds for the game, like it seems like Marty Calder has bestowed his wrestling wisdom upon the gym in the past. And I mean, obviously, Chris Prickett, his resume speaks volumes, just seems like such a great space and similar vibes to Killcliff. And as far as like there's like a very communal, tight kind of vibe with like the high level fighters.
Yeah, man, I love it here too. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of torn between two places that I love so much, and I'm like, I have a lot of close friends and good relationships with people at both gyms. So it sucks that they're so far apart, but yeah, both very solid places for me to train.
Yeah, I mean, you've been in so many spaces. I mean, not as much in recent times per se, but I was kind of referencing some of our past chats in my research and just like the amount of people you got to work with at, Syndicate as well. Like, I mean, Sean Strickland, Michael Chiesa, Khalil Rountree, like Sam Alvey, I believe, as well. Just really a ton of great names there as well.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a gym slut. I like to hop around a little bit. Yeah.
But I did kind of mention a Roundtree. Like, what are your thoughts on this upcoming Alex Pereira UFC light heavyweight title fight? It seems like an exciting one for people who are, fans of the stand-up arts. Like, obviously, both guys have their, respective skills in other aspects of the game, but I feel like that's kind of the layman sort of perspective on the Roundtree Pereira title fight.
Yeah, man, I didn't expect that. I mean, I guess Khalil, he's in the rankings and he's been doing well, but I mean, he didn't really seem, I mean, I had no idea that he was like that close to a title shot, but I'm super happy for him, man. He's such a nice guy, like humble, sweet guy. So it's awesome to see that. I've trained with him I was at Syndicate in, when was I there for the first time? 2019. I don't remember if he was there then. But anyways, I've known him for like quite a while, and he's always been like super nice to me, helped me out a lot in my training. And he's a fucking beast, man. So I think that should be a pretty good fight.
And I always love seeing on social media when people will post the clips of when he was in that hardcore band and he's just giving her on the vocals. That's always fun for me to see.
I've never seen that. You'll have to send that to me after.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I mean, sometimes people can get caught up in the, I guess, like the taxonomy of naming metal genres, but it's like
Yeah.
metal hardcore adjacent, like that sort of vibe.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you have to send me. I knew he was into that stuff, but I didn't know that he was in a band.
Yeah, no, it's cool, man. And I mean, I don't even know why I was thinking of this earlier, but like I remember one of the early articles I did on you, you were kind of saying that that wasn't necessarily your persuasion as much, like that kind of music. Like, what are you finding yourself jamming to, like in your downtime? Are you much of a music guy or?
Yeah, yeah, I'm a big music guy. I'm into like punk stuff, like different genres of punk. Lately I've been into a lot of like ska punk. Um, Operation Ivy, Streetlight Manifesto. There's a band that I discovered kind of recently, actually. They're called the Toasters.
Oh,
They're
okay.
like old school ska band. They're pretty sick. Do you know them?
I'm actually not familiar. No, I was just kind of thinking of different ska bands though. Like Mustard Plug is a pretty
Yeah,
solid one,
Muslim
and
Plug is
Less Than
sick.
Jake.
Yeah, Less Than Jake. I love them too. Yeah.
All my best friends are metalheads, literally in this situation, I guess.
Mhm. It's just like good vibes, happy, upbeat music.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the meme that I saw of it. I think someone said ska music is like what it's like when you're 12 years old and you see mozzarella sticks coming to the
Yeah.
table or something like that.
Like
Like,
what's going on inside your head? Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, I kind of wanted to touch on, I guess, like a tendril that I guess connects you to your last fight there, just because you had fought Fabian Edwards and whatnot, and I mean, he's ready to rematch Johnny Eblin. Like, I guess I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that fight because that's coming up relatively soon as well. Like, do you see it, I guess, playing out a great deal than the initial fight, or I guess just what are the general thoughts on that rematch between the two?
I mean it's a fight and anything can happen, but I think Johnny's wrestling is so good. And like his pace and his pressure and how he mixes in his wrestling is too good for, I mean, a lot of guys in the division. I think if he's smart, he'll wrestle Fabian, and I think he can win that way. But Fabian's obviously a very good high level striker, so he can catch him. But I think I see Johnny taking that.
Yeah, it's an interesting fight. I mean, both high level guys for sure, and everything like that. Like, it's kind of an interesting situation, just like with the whole, I guess, Bellator being acquired by PFL situation. Like, does there feel like there's, I guess, more of an established idea of the circuit you exist within? Is there still a certain, I mean, maybe a weird way to phrase it. I was going to say a certain level of uncertainty, but is there like a particular touch of uncertainty still? I mean, you've gotten some fights underneath this Bellator banner since they've been, I guess, like a PFL property, for lack of a better way to phrase it. But I guess, does it feel like there's like that established kind of like long-term idea of what this joint effort can look like and everything from your vantage point?
Not at all, man. There's a lot of uncertainty for sure. They said Bellator is going to be around for the long term, but yeah, who knows?
Yeah, it is such an unpredictable kind of industry and stuff like that. And I mean, I guess this is like purely a hypothetical kind of thing. Like, would there be an entertain or an idea to entertain, like maybe even going into like a, I guess, a PFL block where there is kind of an established weight division? I find it kind of odd that they don't have like an established middleweight kind of circuit. But I mean, has that entertained or has that entered your idea for like what the future could look like, or is it kind of just like take it fight by fight and you're not even really, I guess, having that awareness of the uncertainty as much, like letting it take up too much headspace, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not think about it, like especially like coming off a loss. You wonder what's going to happen with your career and whatever, but I try and not think of it as much as possible. But yeah, like you said, when the merger happened, I remember the PFL staff said like middleweight and bantamweight are two of the best divisions in Bellator. They have some of the best guys in the world, and we're just gonna let them stay over there and do their thing and not like muddy the waters or whatever, like thin out the division. I agree. I think it's kind of weird, but I don't know. Maybe one day I think for sure one day they're gonna probably add some more divisions to PFL. But yeah, just Bellator for me for now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have options at this point in a way, though. I mean, I feel like we were kind of talking about like one championship, for instance, a bit ago, like because I was talking about when they were initially going to like get into that Colorado market. Like they've since done some shows there, and I was kind of asking you about the one championship global rule set, and I thought your take on it was kind of interesting. And as far as you were kind of saying, like, oh, it doesn't look like an entirely different sport, and maybe those opportunities to throw the knees aren't going to be, I guess, existing to like any kind of exorbitant degree. Like it's not going to happen like 20 times per round, for instance. So I would feel like your style and what you know could lend itself well to, I guess, a few different rule sets. I mean, I saw Tony Laramie, for instance, got signed to Ryzen, so hopefully they can get some Canadian lads over too.
Oh, sick. I didn't know that. Good for him. Um, so he's gonna be fighting like over in Asia then, I guess.
And he's going to be doing some soccer kicks and some face domes, maybe.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, no, I like what you just said. I don't think it changes it all that much. I have not watched a ton of ONE FC, but yeah, it's not like you're seeing every single fight end in soccer kicks.
I guess in kind of saying that, like, how much are you, I guess, like taking in fights from other promotions? I mean, I would think that even there might be an option whereby because this is like so much of your life and you allocate so much time to it that maybe you're not even potentially like looking at the general landscape or like taking that in a fair bit. Like, do you find yourself watching fights from other promotions, or are you kind of like delving into, I guess, like different things when you're not in the training room honing those skills?
Um, I'm a casual fan. Like if there's guys I know fighting, I'll probably throw it on. Um, I mean, I go to bed early, so like when UFC's on, pretty much the main card starts and I'm ready for bed.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say I watch like a ton of fights, but if it's like convenient for me and it's on, I'll throw it on.
Yeah, it's getting harder, man. I kind of mentioned Ryzen before. I mean, those cards are wild for me. Like, it's hard for me to like even. entertained doing that nowadays. Like I think when I was younger, I used to try to like rip the late nights, but it's just like
Yeah.
I'm dying over here. I'm kind of struggling to stay awake.
I went to Impus fight. I guess that was just last weekend. It was on Friday. And I was down in Florida and it was like 40 minutes from where I was staying. And I think Impus fight ended maybe at like 11:30 or midnight. So I got home like close to 1 a.m. and I'm like recovering from that for like 3 days, man. It's too late for me now.
But I guess part of why I brought up that one championship rule set insights that you'd have, I'd also be curious to, I guess, get your thoughts on that upcoming UFC card that they're doing in Edmonton, because that's technically going to be the first UFC event where they have, I guess, the new permutation of the unified rules where they have like the 12-6 elbows at their disposal. Like that seems like such a talking point for certain people. But I had talked to Jesse Arnett the other day, and he was kind of like, oh yeah, like I don't really know how many opportunities there will be to land those kind of elbows in like high level like pro MMA. Like, what are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I think it was such a dumb rule to begin with because to try and throw an elbow like this is like feel like I'm generating much power like that. I think this is like makes way more sense to throw it like that if you want to make big power. So I don't think you're going to see a ton of that. The knee rule, I think, but even that, like knowing that's the new rule, guys are not going to try and be playing that weird game where they're touching their hands on the ground. They're just going to be standing fully up or they're going to be going fully down. They're not going to hang out in that middle zone anywhere. So I don't think it's gonna look like a completely different sport by any means.
Yeah, no, just kind of interesting times. Like I kind of, I mean, obviously you guys would know better than me, but I feel like that's like a similar kind of thing because yeah, it is kind of like a dumb rule to begin with, as you said, because you wouldn't even imagine that that would be the optimal position to generate power because there's not as much of that, I guess, like torquing action that's going into the velocity of the strike, I guess.
Yeah, I'm like trying to think of a position where that would even be something that you would want to do. Like maybe, sometimes when guys are like up against the fence and one guy's like wrestling for a takedown and they're throwing these elbows down, I guess that's like one situation where it's kind of a 12-6, but like if you're on top of someone ground and pounding them, you're not throwing that kind of elbow. It's so awkward.
Yeah, truly, man. And I was kind of talking about some things you might be delving into outside of the MMA world. Like, I feel like the times we've talked over the years, I've always known you to be like a pretty active reader. Like, what are you kind of thumbing through these days if you're finding the time to be reading?
Let me see where my book is. Actually, one of the cooler books I've read in a long time.
Oh, cool.
Placebo effects. It's like it's very sciencey. It's just going through like research articles, but talking about like different ways the placebo effect has been studied. And it's crazy. There's a lot of things I didn't know. You can placebo yourself into just about anything, like even changes in heart rate and blood pressure and like hormonal changes and stuff. Like they can affect all this with placebo.
Yeah, I feel like you've always had like a natural curiosity for that, even outside of like, I guess the context of it having any kind of utility for like combat sports specifically. Like, obviously, you studied medical sciences at Brock, and I mean, you've done a lot with that nutrition consulting business over the years. Like, it just seems like you have a very, I guess, avid curiosity for all facets of the body, both, I guess, cognitively and in terms of just like the general biochemistry, I suppose.
Yeah, I love it, man. I'm like addicted to just taking in information, whether I'm like reading books or listening to podcasts or even just like scrolling through people on Twitter and reading shit. I really like it.
Yeah, what kind of podcasts are you listening to nowadays? Like stuff in like a similar subject matter kind of vein?
Yeah, like sciencey stuff. I got like millions of them downloaded, like Huberman Lab type stuff, but different people.
Yeah, so cool because I remember like I think this was a few years ago, like you'd co-authored a research paper, and as much as you found it to be very rewarding, you were like, yeah, it's fairly time consuming, but maybe you could do something like that like in the future if I guess you
Hey,
have the opportunity
yeah.
to. Yeah.
Speaking of that, I just got my name on another research paper that's going to be published soon.
Oh, hell yeah. What's that about?
It's about weight cutting in MMA. There's a guy that works, I mean, he trains some of the fighters at Kill Cliff. His name is Dr. Corey Peacock. and he works for the ISSN, which is where I did my nutrition certification. And they're writing like a position stand on weight cutting in sports. And they asked me to be a reviewer for the paper. So I reviewed it and gave some feedback and got my name on it.
Oh, I love that, man. Was that a cool process? Like, was it as time consuming as the prior project I referenced, or not so much?
Oh, not at all. This was like hours of work. I just had to read through it and like kind of get feedback. They wanted me to review it as like someone that could put the stuff into practice. And obviously I have a lot of experience in that area. So yeah, I just read it over, gave some feedback, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have like the methodology to get to 185 down to a T pretty much. Like, I mean, you're always someone who has like that, ethos of living it as a lifestyle, and you're so dialed in with that just in the discipline sense, but also the knowledge you have with it. And kind of like I was saying before, you've been at 185 for so long now. So yeah, I'm sure you have a lot of anecdotal experience to lend to that.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of what they wanted. Um, and even just like there's a lot of practices that fighters use that are not exactly based in science, like using like that sweet sweat stuff, or what are some of the other things I brought up? I don't know, there's things that guys do that are just like bro science that have like no research on them. So I just said like let's add some of this stuff into the paper just so if anyone is trying to put this into practice and some of these fighters see it, just so they can know maybe some of these things they're doing are pretty useless.
Yeah, because I do get that vibe with certain things too, like even from like a relatively like layman kind of perspective. I don't know, sometimes those things don't really seem like they have as much empirical evidence backing them up.
Yeah, some of the stuff is none at all. It's just like some of the things have been around for a long time, like bro sciencey stuff that is like passed through generations of fighters. And some of it's harmless. Like again, that sweet sweat, it's like cream that you rub on. It's supposed to make you sweat more. It doesn't, but it's also not harmful. So I mean, if maybe you can placebo yourself into sweating more or feeling better while you do it or whatever.
Yeah, no, tying it to the book there. I also feel that kind of way with cupping as well. Like it seems like it's relatively benign in a sense, but also it's like, is it working? Like I don't really know, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I know there's a little bit of research on that that says it doesn't work. But again, if you do it and you think it's working for you and it's harmless and you're not paying like millions of dollars to do it, then why not?
Yeah, no, there's something to that, man. And I guess like one of the times that we had talked over the years, like you were referencing how your older brother, who last I checked was still out in Thunder Bay, kind of got you into MMA. Is he still pretty gung ho about it? Is he still following along? Like I imagine he's really excited about what you're doing in your career, but is he still kind of following along?
In terms of like watching other fights.
Yeah, I guess just yeah, or maybe like similar kind of thing to you, like maybe like the interests are like a little more diversified, or maybe it's like you don't want to be staying up too late because it's like I'm gonna be
Yeah.
banged up for a few days after.
His thing is that he has two young boys, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, and if they catch any glimpse of people fighting on TV, they're gonna beat the shit out of each other. So it's not often that he's able to watch the fights now.
Yeah, it seems like Jeffrey Bros Landscaping Co. could be expanding by the sounds of it, though, right?
Yeah, Jeffrey Bros beating the shit out of each other club.
Jeffrey Bros Fighting League, something like that.
Yeah.
But I guess with this fight coming up here, like I'm kind of wondering, 'cause, I mean, you're obviously like a cerebral individual from how we've been talking about it. Like I know some fighters kind of I guess like play in their head a fair bit as to like what could I guess manifest in the fight and kind of I guess have like a predominant visualization of the fight for lack of a better way to phrase it, or maybe you're more on the side of like focusing on just what you're doing so you can be just adaptable with how the fight goes while kind of like implementing your game plan, and I guess not having a super fixed idea of what he's going to do. Like how are you I guess approaching it on that end of things?
A bit of both. I mean, you got to watch some tape and see his strengths and weaknesses and tendencies and work that into your training. But at the same time, you got to expect anything could happen, right? I mean, I've never seen this guy shoot a takedown in all the fights I've watched, but you never know. Maybe he's going to shoot on me, right? So, yeah, like there's some game planning and specific stuff, but you got to be prepared for anything.
Yeah, and what do you think a win over a guy like Lima could do for you? Like, I mean, obviously he's like a very experienced guy and everything like that. Like, I mean, I'm trying to find a way to phrase this. Like, I guess like in terms of like even like a resume component, like just like a key win that you've had in your career, like not so much even like in a title hierarchy, like getting back to the, belt contention kind of sense, but like what would a win like this be for you? Would it be like a particular, I guess, like capstone achievement in a sense, or like a real feather in the cap, I suppose?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that feather in the cap for sure because I mean Lima's not like that old, but he's been around, he's been doing it for a long time. So I watched him like when I was young in the sport, watching this guy beat the shit out of people, and I was like, yeah, this guy's sick, and now I'm fighting him. So yeah, it's pretty cool, man, to get to this point in my career and fight some of the guys that I've looked up to.
Yeah, I kind of looked at it in that sense too. I mean, his fights with Rory McDonald, I feel are like I feel like the people that know, but I feel like they're also like in a way kind of unheralded in a certain sense. Like maybe the, I guess, sentiment around them isn't as commensurate as maybe it should be. Cause I mean, truly heater fights. And I mean, obviously the highlight reel finish over MVP. So yeah, it'd probably be cool to be fighting a guy like this for sure.
Yeah, man, it's cool. It's a little bit surreal.
Yeah, no, it's a great fight, man. And just really excited to be able to talk to you in kind of close proximity to this fight. It definitely just jumps out. Like, I mean, it's a great fight. Like when I had initially even seen the announcement, I kind of, got the wheels moving about reaching out and stuff like that because yeah, just such an exciting matchup. But I also do want to be mindful of what you're getting up to as well, man. So figured I'd give you the floor in case you had any kind of parting thought you wanted to add as we're wrapping up here. I appreciate the time, Aaron.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Not much, man. I'm a man of few words, but everyone should check out the fight. 2 weeks from now in San Diego, I'm fighting one of the legends of Bellator, so I think it's one that's worth watching.
Yeah, no, a great matchup, man, and really excited to see this Douglas Lima fight on September the 7th. And yeah, I'll be certainly tuning in and whatnot. But again, to reiterate, I do appreciate you making time to join the MMA Canada platform here. And also, you enjoy the rest of your night, Aaron. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.